For tuning into my YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning into this video on Scorpio Moon. And I wanted to share this video because I watched quite a bit of videos on my different signs throughout my own chart over the years, just trying to understand more about my personality and my nature, what makes me respond the way I do, and you know, what is all this about in terms of astrology. And it's been years now that I've kind of unpacked a lot of the mystery, you know, around astrology and my natal chart and what makes us do the things we do. I will say ultimately we are, as beings, we should be transcending our astrology chart. We shouldn't be limited to just certain aspects of our natal chart that makes us, I don't even want to say makes us, but we react or respond a certain way based on, you know, the energies of the planet. It's very real. I do believe that, you know, planetary bodies have an influence on our lives and our behaviors. However, I do think we're intended to transcend that. We're intended to realize and recognize what all of this means and kind of transcend it through our knowledge, through our, you know, intuitive sense, our insights, you know, us reaching for higher in our existence. But seeing that we're still evolving as beings, I think astrology is a great tool to just help you to learn a little bit more about yourself, you know, so you know what you're dealing with. And a Scorpio moon has been my most challenging aspect in terms of my emotions, my Scorpio moon sign. And I wanted to possibly help someone else or inspire someone else as they're on their journey to self-discovery, self-awareness, understanding who they are, and getting it directly from the perspective of someone who is like you, who has a Scorpio moon, or maybe you're dating someone with a Scorpio moon. You just want to understand a little bit more about, you know, that energy or why this person responds the way they do. So although I'm not going to be talking about relationships, I want to talk about the negative first and then the positive of having a Scorpio moon sign. And it's, you know, it's not a generic, I did a Google search. This is just my personal experience and how I've interpreted this energy in my life, and then how I've taken it, you know, used it for the better, you know, or the empowerment of my experience. So starting with the negative, a lot of people will say Scorpio moon people are secretive, and then they'll just leave it at that, like we're just secretive people. That's not necessarily the case. It's not that Scorpio moon people just want to walk around being secretive and, you know, mysterious. It's just we recognize oftentimes that people are not emotionally equipped to deal with what emotions we're carrying around. That these emotions can sometimes be very conflicting, confusing, explosive, you know, just filled with so much undefinable, you know, energy that it's hard for a Scorpio moon person to just say, yeah, this is what's going on, and they're just, you know, calm and collect about it. At some point in your relationship with Scorpio moon, they realize that you have your own vulnerabilities, you have your own emotional weaknesses, so therefore it's going to be difficult for them to trust that you can handle their emotions. So that has a lot to do with that secrecy element. Also, the secrecy with Scorpio moon is that we're good keepers of secrets. And I'm not talking about little foo-foo secrets. I'm talking about secrets that most people will take to their grave. A Scorpio moon person will either pick up on that secret, you know, you'll somehow leak it to them because they attract that. They attract these secrets. They attract that darkness. They attract other people's pain. They can attract other people's psychological instability. They can attract this energy and have the ability to harness. And so when it comes to a Scorpio moon person listening, being a good listener to other people's issues, it's because others may feel that Scorpio moon is strong enough to deal with it. Even though oftentimes Scorpio moon people are very sensitive, we have the ability to put on this exterior that, you know, looks as if we can handle it. We can handle anything. And for the most part, when it comes to other people's secrets, we can handle it. We can take it with us and just add it to our pile of emotions to process, but at least it was allowing that other person to get it out or get it off their chest. And in that way, Scorpio moon can be a healer or healing to other people. But in terms of that negative side, yeah, there can be difficulties in communication of of a Scorpio Moon person's emotions, because there's a lot to do with trust and knowing whether or not that person may use the secrets that they share against them at some point. So there's a fear that if I tell you something about myself, or I reveal my vulnerabilities or my emotional weaknesses or my sensitivities, you may actually use that against me, and I don't play those games. I'd much rather go off and be alone in isolation, or drink, or get high, or, you know, process my emotions and my secrets through sexual intimacy. So that can be challenging, obviously, in emotions. Another negative is Scorpio Moon people are not always sure how to process their emotions, again, which makes communication difficult, but it can make them and their behavior seem erratic and unpredictable to other people, because the highs and lows can be like all over the place. So I was born in a full moon in Scorpio, and my sun sign is Taurus. So these energies are like night and day. And growing up for me, it was difficult to decide or choose what energy was gonna take the lead in a certain situation. You know, am I gonna be Taurus and you know, use finesse and sugarcoat things and be considerate of people's emotions, or am I gonna be Scorpio and keep it raw and tell it like it is? And just, it was just constant dance, and it wasn't always a dance. Sometimes it was an outright war, you know, bloodshed, because I wasn't sure what was socially acceptable and how my emotions, you know, what my emotions would reveal about me that I didn't want other people to know. So I wasn't always sure how to communicate that. And it can be difficult. If you have a Scorpio Moon child and you're watching this video, you have to be considerate that they may not, your child may not always know how to express what they're going through in terms of their uncomfortability, their pain, their trauma. Even if you think you're the best parent in the world, you know, you may have exposed your child to something that has made them feel, you know, unsafe, or made them feel insecure, or made them feel afraid, and therefore they can be a bit withdrawn even from you as a parent. And you think, oh, my child should trust me, they should talk to me, they should communicate. And that's been an issue with me and my mother. Although my mother and I are relatively close, I grew up in an environment where my mother, suffering from PTSD, often revealed her emotional weaknesses and her vulnerabilities. I saw it all the time, and I would step in a position of nurturer and support system for my mom at the detriment of my own emotional development. So by the time I became a young adult, my childlike emotions were trying to catch up, you know, and they would spill out in my relationships and in my everyday life as just being messy, and, you know, all types of unpleasant emotional responses were coming out later on that when I was a child I hid. You know, I saw my mother going through something, so I hid my own emotional vulnerabilities so I could step up and be there for her in some way. And it created a lot of, you know, confusion for me emotionally as I got older. So keep that in mind, that it can be difficult to express that. So feelings of loneliness, you know, isolation, withdrawal are very real. It could lead to depression, and it can lead to other abuses, because you want to numb what you're going through, and you also want to keep other people at bay when you're experiencing certain transformative, you know, traumas. You may not care for sentimental moments. This isn't the case with everyone, but if you're a Scorpio Moon person, you may not be big on like those really fluffy, you know, sentimental moments that you have to open up. You know, you gotta show people your loving nature, because you're kind of a bit want to be on defense. You know, you kind of want to protect yourself. And I'm not saying people with Scorpio Moon don't laugh. There's obviously other aspects in your natal chart that can make you super bubbly and extroverted and everything else. But when it comes to your emotions and having those like sentimental moments, you kind of may want to like just keep it, you know, like, I'm fine, yeah, this is great. But you don't like fake facade moments of sentiment, you know, when people are having those like fake moments of expressing their love or appreciation, and you see it's fake, you really don't want to be like around that. You're like, oh, I ain't got time for this. Because when it comes to your emotions, you don't play those games when it comes to people not being authentic and raw in how they express their emotions. You value that a lot more than someone who doesn't really share their emotions at all, like a person that just doesn't give you any emotional stimulation, you're likely not going to want to stay in a relationship with them, because Scorpio Moon person, which just can be a negative, is they can tend to stir up drama or emotional, you know, excitement. They'll stir it up unconsciously, because this is what, you know, the storm, it could start at the depth and then work its way to the surface. And because emotional moon people are deep in terms of how they process their emotions and what they see and their interpretations of others, they can't deal with that superficial, you know, oh, everything's great, let's just keep it pleasant and just keep everything's at peace. They need a contrast. They don't need a constant, you know, everything's great. It's that contrast is what helps them to get, you know, get out what doesn't belong. They need emotional things to be kind of stirred up so that they can get out what is plaguing them. If they don't get that out, then it will fester, and they know what can result as if that happens, that it could be explosive later on. So that occasional kind of starting something up with their partner or in the family is a way for them to kind of get out what doesn't belong and get emotionally stimulated, you know, to feel alive in a sense. A lot of people will say emotional moon, Scorpio moon is just associated with their relationship with their mom, that maybe, you know, early on your mom had some type of issues or abusive or authoritative, or they usually will point to the mother as being key in a Scorpio moon experience, you know, why they go through what they go through, that intensity, that depth, that, you know, unpredictability. But a lot of Scorpio moon, especially women, may have daddy issues. You know, it may be that their dad either wasn't present when they went through some traumatic experience, was aloof to their existence. He could have been in the house, lived in the home, but just was a bit aloof to what the child was going through, and therefore you can develop these daddy issues where you don't really trust men, or you don't really trust you know, certain partnerships, because you expected your father to protect you in a situation, and growing up maybe he wasn't there. So you may develop these issues with the dad as a result of your Scorpio moon, and it will obviously affect your relationship, because you want to feel protected. And if you don't feel emotionally protected as a child, as you get older, your defenses and those walls only get thicker. And you can have one, you know, superficial relationship after another, or one relationship after another where you're acting out, you know, your fears, you're acting out that past, you know, pain or trauma, whatever you went through. So that's something to keep in mind as a Scorpio moon, is where do I need to cleanse my emotional, you know, state? Like where do I need to do some housekeeping, because there may be things that have been lingering in your psyche for years that you've either ignored, you've suppressed through drugs, you've suppressed through, you know, just multiple sexual partners. There may be something that's lingering that you just don't want to confront, but it has to be dealt with. Otherwise, you will literally be on the path of self-destruction in one way or another, you know. Another issue or negative, I would say, associated with Scorpio moon is psychic attacks. I don't hear enough about this when I have tuned into other videos on the subjects, is that, oh yeah, they can tend to be dark. But like, what does that mean when someone says, oh, Scorpio moon people can tend to be dark? To people who know me best, won't necessarily associate me with being dark, but I'm aware that I have a very dark side to me. I don't portray that. I don't share much of that dark side. So if you're a Scorpio moon, you may be prone to psychic attacks, to morbid thinking, to suicidal thoughts, to homicidal thoughts, psychosis, or simply being irritable or erratic, which is, you know, has to do with that unpredictable behavior, where one minute you can be good, everything can be high, you can be on this high of emotion, and then come crashing down, and you may have some kind of tantrum as a result of it, you know, or bring up something to just sabotage the joy, because that's kind of what you have experienced either early on in life or as a child, that the joys seem to be a bit short-lived. You know, you may have an amazing time at Disney World, but then in the car ride back home, your parents are arguing and you guys have an accident or something crazy happens and you're like, oh, you know, we just left Disney World, everything was great. So there's these moments of high, and then, you know, you kind of almost feel like I can't enjoy it too long because I know something's going to come along and just snatch that away from me. But be careful, because in a lot of respects, you may unconsciously be creating that sabotaging moment because you're just accustomed to thinking shit just will not go right for me in life. Be mindful of, you know, your interest in taboo subjects. I think if you are a Scorpio moon, or you have a child that's a Scorpio moon, especially in this day and age, the information age, they can be seeking out, you know, and exploring things that are of occult nature, of metaphysics, of astrology, of, you know, different things that on the surface can seem like a harmless study, but I will say it can definitely take you down a dark path if you're not careful. So if you are interested in certain topics, especially taboo subjects, I think it's great that there are people on the planet who do speak on these things. Like, everyone's not meant to be a plastic surgeon the same way everyone's not meant to explore metaphysics and the unseen realm and paranormal activity, and that's not for everyone. But a Scorpio moon person can feel right at home in that, you know, that environment and that conversation. But if you are a young person or you have children who are Scorpio moon, just kind of safeguard their introduction into these things if that's something they're wanting to look into, because to tell them no, you can't look at that, you know, we're just gonna go to church and we're just gonna, it can make them feel so confined and suppressed, and it's not an outlet for that energy, and it can you know, come back at you. It could blow up in your face when you try to prevent your child or whomever from exploring certain things, or yourself. You can resist, you know, exploring that part of who you are for so long, and then it'll kind of backfire where, you know, you'll either find yourself in the company of people who are very much into that lifestyle, or you'll feel even more alone trying to just put on this front that you're, you know, not into those things. Like, oh, I'm not into any of that, I'm just a great holy person. But you may be dealing with some dark stuff going on. So the process of transmuting that dark energy into something more pleasant, something more useful to humanity, can be the path of a Scorpio moon. You know, utilizing that dark energy, those dark thoughts, that experience. I will say openly, I've been in a psychiatric ward twice in my life, and once when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, and sitting in a circle with people who are all going through something, whatever it is, depression, stress, suicidal thoughts, self-harm, and everyone's talking and everyone's saying what they're going through, and I'm trying to see, you know, well, where do I fit in this circle of people, and why am I here? And it's a part of my experience having a Scorpio moon, knowing people and I also have Neptune in the 12th house, which rules asylums and hospitals and prisons and things like that. So I've been in so many environments and have attracted people from these experiences, whether it's veterans who have PTSD, or friends who are in very unfortunate situations, you know, to do with mental illness, or people who've been to a psychiatric facility. All of what I've gone through gives me experience, not necessarily a book expertise on counseling or mental health, but I've gained so much experience because of that placement of the moon for me, and understanding what people are going through in terms of crises and trauma and just the mind. So you can use that understanding to your benefit of what others are going through. Definitely will say that's a positive. Some of the other positives of Scorpio moon is balance. As you get older, you will definitely establish a sense of balance that not everyone with that placement can attain or understand, because they've not been to that depth. You know, they've not gone down there. They've not been through hell and back. They've not experienced these traumas throughout their life that equips them with a certain character and a presence about them that is not just knowledgeable about certain things, but it's a certain presence that makes you feel comfortable in talking to them and expressing yourself to them and saying, oh, okay, they understand. It's not like just going to talk to a psychiatrist and they're taking notes and they're listening, but they're not really listening. It's like when you talk to someone who's been through some things, you feel more comfortable with how they're going to handle your emotions in this situation. They're not going to be too, flat, in their response. They're going to understand. And that is the benefit of having a Scorpio moon, is that you can understand people in a way, and that comes with growth. It comes with maturity. It comes with spiritual insights and how you can use your intuition to help others. You tune into your intuition a little bit better, because when I was a child, had no idea about my intuition enough to steer clear of certain situations. But as I've gotten older, I can sense, people's intentions. I can sense people's fears. I can sense others' secrets. And it helps me navigate through the relationship where I can see where I fit in to be, to contribute to their growth and their spiritual development, and also how that person can help me refine who I am, when I go through certain experiences. Another positive is that as you get older, you will definitely acquire true friends and real relationships, again, because of that intuition, that the fake shit that you don't have time for will fall off, like in the beginning, that kind of facade that people put in. So I'd gotten into a relationship where with the Pisces man, and although I could tell there were certain elements of his characteristics that was like game a little bit, like, just the usual, you meet someone and you kind of put on your you put on that facade that we all kind of do from time to time when you're meeting someone. You're just feeling them out. But I can sense what his needs were before he vocalized them, before we even went on like several more dates. I can just kind of sense his emotional needs, and it allowed me to just kind of slip in there and be who I am and nurture that part of his emotional self, because that's a major part of most people's lives and their relationships, is their emotional experience, that has to do a lot with the mind and how they process things. So that's definitely a benefit, is that you will attract, or you will establish real friendships and relationships. Another positive would be your own emotional awareness, and that you can't take for granted, because there are so many people who are not aware of their emotions enough to prevent certain reactions. You can go from feeling suicidal to all of a sudden having a really strong grip on reality enough to resist that thinking and resist that path, and know that you have a greater purpose, and that you won't allow that energy to keep you down. You may plunge every now and then, but you come right back up and you keep swimming, or you keep doing your thing. You will also be able to you'll also be more emotionally equipped to handle crises situations. Everyone's not equipped to handle their friends and family situations and their drama and their crises. But as long as you're willing to listen, you will definitely be an asset to people when it comes to dealing with their trauma and their crises. You'll be that friend that someone will call and say, hey, this just happened, this is going on. And you'll be able to kind of keep the situation at a level of, at a level that you can control, or not just you, but just everyone they'll be more willing to listen to you. Like, you can take the lead in calming down a situation. You can take the lead in helping meander the crises in a way that, can keep the family together, keep things, at a level of it's going to be okay, or whatever. So you'll have that ability, because that's a part of your emotional maturity. As you're growing emotionally, you'll know what is not the best reaction to a situation. And you just have this fearlessness that we have when it comes to confrontation and crises and trauma or pain. You'll become fearless in dealing with it. Like, I've been through this before. I got this. Like, I know how to handle this. Even if you don't, verbalize it, you'll be psychologically prepared for what is to come. And that, again, is going to come as you get older. So if you're 15, 17, 21 watching this, that's not to say you're not still going to have moments where you lash out or you break down or you fold, you know, or you withdraw from a situation because you don't know how to handle it. Certainly we'll still have these experiences through life, but you're more grounded and you're more aware of your own emotions enough to sift through, you know, what is valuable, what is a valuable intuitive response, and what is just fear and all of that, you know, cloud that most people experience when they're going through something. Is they're clouded by fear, clouded by uncertainty, clouded by a host of things. And you can kind of pinpoint, you know, what is the best course of action in this situation, which is a beautiful thing. And then I will say lastly, another beautiful and powerful effect of Scorpio Moon is transformation and the ability to transform not just your life, but those around you. And you can't take that for granted, the ability to transform, because some people have been stuck in their situation and stuck in their emotions for years. They've been in the same bitter, stagnant state. And you can trigger something in a person or say something in a person that they didn't even know other people or you knew about them. You will say something that they didn't know, you know, was an actual issue for them, or even a gift that they may have. You may pinpoint a quality in a person that no one else has spoken on, but you see it, you know, not like, oh, you're great at sewing. I'm talking about like an actual part of their spirit or being that you can sense is a quality that they may have overlooked or other people may have overlooked, that you can say, and it sets them on a new path. It helps them to transform their life. Or you can take someone down off their high horse in a minute to a level that breaks them down, that will help them to remove any facade, any fakery that they've been living. You will dismantle that and don't care about their feelings in doing so, because it's all about transformation in that moment. That while I'm talking to you and we're going back and forth, I may say that secret that I've known about you for years, or I may say that thing about you that you've been trying to hide that I know, and I know that now is the opportune time to reveal it so you can transform, you can break free. And it goes the same with the Scorpio Moon person when they allow others to check them. You know, when I have allowed people to tell me about myself, my emotional state, I became more aware of that thing that, you know, for so long I was just living with it, didn't know it was an issue until someone brought it up, and I'm like, that hurt, you know, ouch, but okay, I need to work on this. That needs to die off so that this new aspect of me can shine through. So definitely some things to keep in mind. You have a piercing perception on a lot of things, and your intuitive wisdoms and your insights will grow and develop as you get older. And I will say, despite what emotional scars that you carry from, you know, your life that you've gone through, there's a beautiful horizon when you get through these things. When you work through that pain, you're able to come out on top, you know, the victor, as long as you're willing to do the work. You're willing to go through that transformation. You're willing to allow your character to be refined and to build on that character. And I think that was it, but I wanted to share that with you guys. I hope that you found this information useful for Scorpio Moon, and definitely leave a comment if you are a Scorpio Moon, or you're dating someone who's a Scorpio Moon, or there was something I left out, or what other information you'd like to discuss in terms of mental health. So thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time, peace.